Welcome to the Ever Celine podcast, the show that ignites your passion for leadership and empowers you to develop a culture of continuous improvement. I'm your host, Matt Sims, and in each episode, we bring you fascinating insights and invaluable tips from our incredible lineup of guests. What do they all have in common? They share an unwavering dedication to excellence and are the experts in driving engagement, improving metrics, and reducing costs.
The Ever So Lean podcast with Matt Sims. You know it makes sense.
Hey, I'm Nicola McCrabbe. I live in Canada and I'm known as the Burnout Queen and I'm from Northern Ireland. I'm a leadership coach and my topic is burnout and resilience. And so I help high achievers kind of stay in the game so they don't burn out. But I met Matt in a conference in Dublin. We were both speakers and we just clicked right away. I just loved Matt's humor and he was just so passionate and so helpful and so fun. And I think back to that experience and that day in Cork, Matt made my day. And as I said, I'm the Burnout Queen and I work with high achievers to help them stay in the game and not burnt out. I burnt out myself and did some research and wrote a book myself. But today we're here to talk to Matt about his experience with high achievers and his story and his book. Good morning, Matt, or good afternoon to you in England. So lovely to be talking to you again.
Hello! This is weird.
Yeah, I bet it's weird. I've hijacked the show today, Matt, and usually you're on the other side. So today we're going to do something different. Today we're going to get between the pages of your new book, The Emergence of an Unexpected Leader.
I want to meet this guy. He sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's not too often you meet a nice guy like that, Matt.
No, I need to find him. I'm going back to Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've been reading through your book and I just loved it, Matt. I love the authenticity of it and the vulnerability. And those are some topics we're going to look at today. But I'd like to start with asking you just one question. What prompted you to write a book? You know, given the fact that you didn't do too well in school that you talk about, and now you write a book, like what's going on?
Madness, isn't it? Absolute madness. So over the years, many people have said to me that, Matt, your story's fascinating. We really like hearing about it. You should write a book. And it's one of those thoughts that go in one ear, out the other. Just let it go, never bother with it. And then I've always found that my anxiety is something I've been very open and very honest about with people. To the stage, I thought that I was giving people anxiety because I'd meet people, get talking to them, and then it turned out they had anxiety.
People anxiety. Come on, Matt.
I just found that those conversations I was having with people really tended to help them. So I thought, do you know what? There's an opportunity here for me to reach a larger group of people and just let them know exactly what you just said. Everybody has anxiety and it's normal. And let's laugh about it. And let's hear how someone with anxiety went from, being sick, not being able to leave the house to working in large organizations, traveling the world and leading people.
Wow. So much hope, Matt had.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? I would never figured out in Dublin that you had anxiety.
And everyone always says that. Because it's one of those things. If I had a broken arm and I was walking around with a cast on my arm, you'd have known that I had a broken arm. And you'd have said, oh, how did you break your arm? And we'd have spoke about it and it would have been a thing. But mental health, people can't see it. So they just see what you sort of create that you put on in front of people. And I talk about that in the book where I built up this character who was the Joker. And I became the life and soul, the Joker, quick wit. I could make anything funny. And I hid behind that persona for much of my life because of that persona was my safety zone. If someone didn't like me, it didn't matter because of it was a persona and they didn't know it, but I did. So I could hide.
A bit like an actor, Matt.
Exactly, yeah.
Two people. And so, it was a way of not taking things personally.
Exactly, yeah, because the rejection of someone not liking me was the end of the world. Like, how can they not like me? What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And that allowed me to negate that issue. And also, I could act like somebody who didn't have anxiety, which was a really unusual way of coping, but it allowed me to try and do things that an 18, 19, 20-year-old would normally do that I couldn't do, like going out and having fun.
That's fascinating, actually. It's kind of like experimentation and practice, but putting on a facade and another character and learning new ways of being.
Exactly. But I didn't know I was doing it. It was just something that happened completely naturally, which is really
Okay,
strange.
I get that, your coping mechanism,
Yeah.
and really interesting. And I feel like we could talk about that for an hour, but I'm going to go back to your childhood. And you talk about, at the beginning of the book, those childhood struggles through school and through high school. Do you want to tell me a little bit about just a little bit about that? Because I want to talk about so much more than that, but I think it starts there.
I was never the kid at school that was academically cute. There was 4 sets for everything. Set 1 being the clever people. I was in set 4 for everything.
I remember those, yes.
I was in set 4 for everything. I struggled.
So I presume you didn't pass your 11 plus.
I don't even remember taking it. I couldn't tell you. But I just couldn't do it. And I wasn't sporty. I wasn't athletic. I tried, but I wasn't. And I just didn't fit in. I just felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. And I just couldn't connect with what I was being taught. And at the time, I felt it was me. It was something within me made me stupid and I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
And it's only when I look back now that I really realize that, in fact, it was the teachers that were failing, not
yeah,
me, because they weren't
yeah.
engaging me. And it still fascinates me now that if we walked into a school classroom now, unannounced, it would pretty much still be exactly the same methods as you and I would have experienced when we was at school. 30 kids
It's
sitting there
amazing.
staring at a screen.
That's amazing. And what's amazing is we always think it's about us, huh? It's nearly like stop thinking about yourself so much. There's a lot of other variables at play,
Yeah.
and it's not all about you. Tell me what happened at 16, Matt. Tell me about that experience.
So I left school. My friends went to the sixth form and carried on through college. I just couldn't wait to get out of school and go into the working
Of
world.
course.
And I was offered many an opportunity, but I was already brewing this natural strong will. And I followed my strong will to go and work in a supermarket, which was a wonderful experience because it really does put you at the coalface in terms of manual labor and dealing with customers. And I think that was a really good foundation for me. Although at the time I detested every moment of it. It was horrible. But I think I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, right in the shop floor, and that probably was influential later on. But tell me about moving to the post then. What prompted that, and how was that experience?
My granddad was in the post for many a year, and he had always encouraged me to go and do it, but strong-willed Matt wasn't interested. And then once I came to the end of my tenure in the supermarket, his encouragement, shall we say, wore me down, and I moved across. And it was a really strange situation because I walked into my interview, and the people in the room all knew me through my granddad, so they all knew that I was Mick's grandson, and that's how I was referred to, Mick's grandson. And the interview was a strange experience as well because it was kind of a tick box exercise. And then before I knew it, I was getting up at 3 a.m. and going into work in the dark to deliver mail, which was a real sharp shock for me.
Wow, that's fascinating. Now, you mentioned something quickly about a public breakdown. Was that before or after that?
That was after that. That was in my early 20s, 19, 20 years old. That was a really difficult time. I was in a relationship and it was my first proper relationship. And we were renting like a little flat together and everything was all mapped out for me. And I got home from work one day and she decided she was leaving. And I look back now, it was absolutely right. It was never going to work. And I was just in this bubble. But I had a real breakdown. It completely destroyed me. And I lost my home. I lost my self-respect. I lost hope. I lost everything. And I just fell apart. And I moved everything into storage. And I had to move back home to my mum and dad's, which felt like a massive step backwards. And I was really poorly. I mean, I was really, really ill.
Wow, I'm so sorry. That sounds so difficult.
It was awful. We had psychologists that were coming out to me at home. They were giving me medication. I was just in such a state. I couldn't eat. I didn't eat for months, like literally nothing. And then that added to my anxiety because I didn't weigh anything. I was so thin, but so tall. It added to my anxiety that people were talking about me and looking at me. And it was just an awful experience. But, day by day, bit by bit, things got better. But it was very public. It played out at work. It played out in my social life. It played out at home. And I eventually moved away from the area that I grew up in, and that was one of the main reasons, because I just couldn't escape that it's like a cloud that was over me. It was horrible. It
Yeah.
really was horrible.
And that's very hard in a place where everyone, a small place where everybody knows what's happening, and playing that out, like you say, in the public eye.
It was horrible. And I, that was, I just, even after the event when I was okay, I felt like everybody was judging me and thinking that I was weak
Yeah.
because of how I
Yeah.
was. It was just awful, really awful. And I wouldn't change it. If I went back, I would still want to go through that, because I think I learned so much from it about myself. But at the time, I mean, I think people were very worried.
Yeah. So a fresh start can make a big difference, Matt. And tell us what happened, like how you went from that fresh start then to getting a managerial role. How did that come about?
So I met my now wife, not then wife, my now wife,
Yeah.
and we put a deposit down on a wedding venue, and this deposit was like £1,800, and the venue was going to be £10,000. Now
Wow.
there was no way I was ever going to be able to afford, on my wages at the time, to pay for this venue. It's madness. I think about it now, but my wife encouraged
It's
me.
a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it's a lot of money now. I'd love 10 grand. But my wife encouraged
Yeah.
me to sort of further myself, because she said, look, you can do it. You've been in the post for years. You've done all of the operational roles. You've got the knowledge. Go for it. And something just sparked inside of me, and I went for this junior leveled role. Never in a million years did I think I would get it. I thought the experience would be valuable, but it just happened. Like the interview, that everything just flowed very, very nicely.
And it sounds like that brought something entirely new, like brought you into a new era. What do you think the qualities you had up to then, Matt? Like what had you developed through all those struggles?
I think without knowing it, I built resilience, and I was able to get through whatever was thrown in front of me. Now, it didn't feel like it, because every day was a struggle, but I was able to do it, and I was still
Mm.
there. I'm still here now. So
Yes.
I did manage to do that. And moving into a managerial position in a scenario where I'd been one of the people was very, very challenging, because that relationship dynamic completely changed.
Yeah, that's such a tough one, like to go from being a peer to being a manager.
Yeah, and it didn't go down very well, if I'm honest. And I was young and inexperienced, and the way I dealt with it, there was lots of mistakes, but that resilience that I'd unknowingly built up was so valuable during those early days, because if I had to force myself to carry on every single day
Mhm.
to better myself.
Mhm. A lot of grit, a lot of endurance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way of putting it.
You certainly did learn it the hard way, Matt, huh? It wasn't easy. You didn't have an easy start.
No, and I definitely, I think one of the things I've learned, if anyone is moving from the front line into a managerial position, I wouldn't recommend doing it in your workplace. I'd recommend going elsewhere with a new team, because it's so
Yeah.
much harder to do it where you've been a Jack
Mhm.
the lad, and
Yeah.
now you're suddenly the boss.
Yes, that's really hard. You mentioned a little bit about your relationship with the professor, and it seems like you've had kind of support in different unexpected places along the way. When you look back at some of those relationships, what stands out most to you?
It's funny. I'm a strong believer that things happen for a reason, and people come into your world without knowing it at the right time, and give you something that you don't know that you need. And the
Yeah.
professor was just one of those people. And there was a number of people that I met throughout my career that came in and changed me in ways that I didn't know it was happening. But when I look back
Mhm.
now, I can pinpoint exactly where those things came from.
Yeah.
And the professor was one of those guys. He was so clever and he was so knowledgeable. And he came over from Japan, and he was the font of knowledge with this continuous improvement stuff. And everyone was scared of him. No one wanted to go near him through fear that he might ask them a technical question that they couldn't answer. And it was really
Mhm.
scary. Well, I was the opposite. I was like, Professor, I just want to get inside your brain. Just tell me everything you can. And he was brilliant. And he took me under his wing because of I was like that,
Wow.
and it lit a fire within me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was good at something, and I was able to retain the knowledge. Whereas at school, I couldn't retain it.
Wow.
And I now know it's because I emotionally connected with the subject matter
Mhm.
rather than being pushed upon me.
Good point, Matt. So, it is wonderful when somebody sees the potential in you. What was behind that? Why do you think you really connected with that subject matter? What was it about it?
Unwittingly, when I was actually on the post out delivering the letters every day, I was finding every opportunity to be more efficient. And I tell a good story of how this progressed in the book itself. But I was finding ways to save minutes, little minutes here and there through the whole
Mhm.
operation, to the stage where I was shaving 2 hours a day off of my work time. And so without knowing it, I already had an eye for reducing waste and improving efficiency. So when this framework was introduced to us through world-class manufacturing, and all of a sudden I could see a framework that you would follow with steps that were logical to be able to do this properly, it appealed to me because I thought, I've seen all this waste. I know there's all this waste here. And now you've given me something to follow that enables me to take it out. And but what it doesn't do, it doesn't teach you how to manage people through change, which is a
Yeah.
massive learning for me.
And especially not, and I'm glad you brought that up because when I think of efficiency and task oriented people, in a way, it's a little bit the opposite of empathetic people. There seems to be a little bit of, there are two opposite ends of the spectrum. So, what do you think helped you to combine those both, or to be the empathetic leader, but also the optimized leader and the efficient leader?
I think it's experience. I don't think you can get empathy in any other way than physically doing something and learning about it. The textbooks, they have their purpose and the qualifications, that there's a reason for them existing. And it's great to learn all that stuff, but you don't really, it's like learning to drive. You don't really learn until you start driving.
Yeah.
And I think that having the logic behind me was great, but learning how change affects people emotionally
Mhm.
and how to navigate that forest, if you like, that took a long time. That took 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And it was only once I'd realized that the people were the most important part of change that it suddenly became a lot less friction involved and a lot less stressful for me. And I was able to deliver results much more comfortably through people rather than me smashing my head into a wall all the time.
Okay. So it really was the bottom line was the people.
Absolutely. All day long. People, people, people.
And do you think any of your early experiences help with that as well?
Yeah, I do. I think having spent much of my career on the front line, I understood what it was like to have a non empathetic manager come to you with tasks or send you a message at 4 p.m. on a Friday. Can you just do this
Yeah.
for me? Don't
Mhm.
work the weekend, but can you
Mhm.
just get this done for
Yeah.
Monday morning? I knew what that was like.
Yeah.
Someone once said to me, as a leader, Matt, think about the shadow that you cast. And what he was referring to is I used to go onto the shop floor in some places and I would do what I called a Gordon Ramsay, like he does on those food shows where he goes in, he tries
Yeah.
the food,
It's
then
pretty tough.
yeah, he goes in and goes, stop cooking, it's absolute rubbish. Stop cooking, big boy. And he gets really angry with them. That's what I used to do. And I used to go onto the shop floor, tell them to stop,
Mhm.
used to go absolutely mad at them, and then tell them how to do it properly and then walk away. There's loads of problems with that. Mainly the fact that I was swearing, I was shouting. I was this senior leader that walked onto the floor they'd never seen before, was suddenly telling them they were doing it wrong. I was telling them what to do. And then I was walking away and they were probably going home to their partners and their partners were going, how was work? And they would go, well, this random guy came in, he swore at us, told us we were doing it wrong, told us to do it a different way. And then he went home.
Yeah. There must be another way.
Yeah, exactly. And they weren't doing it. Like I would go away and they wouldn't do what I'd said. And that shadow that I was casting was a confusing one for people. And it was a stressful one for me because I'd get all worked up and then even more worked up when I looked at the report and saw they hadn't done what I told them to do. So I think it goes back to that people piece again and changing the way that you deliver a message depending on your audience rather than just blanketing everybody with the same technology and terms. Generational differences impact that as well. And I think learning that was huge.
Yeah. So being at the other end, seeing what not to do, but also I imagine your childhood struggles and understanding struggle and what that was like. Probably, I would imagine, had a huge influence in how you decided to lead people. Being empathetic and understanding people and understanding what it was like to struggle, putting yourself in other people's shoes.
Exactly. It was about being the leader that I felt that I needed
Yeah.
when I was younger, but didn't have. That for me is the mantra that runs underneath the surface for me, is about being that person.
Yeah. And then, you really excelled, Matt. You got the award from WCM and you stepped into senior operational manager. It seemed like you were really coming into yourself at this stage, finding your place.
Yeah, that's a really, I never thought of it like that. It was almost like a flower that was blooming.
Yeah.
The opportunities were coming thick and fast, and I was taking on those opportunities. And I must have looked a right wally walking around in my cheap shiny suit, but but I felt the part, and I was able to put into practice
Mhm.
things that I'd learned along the way. And I didn't do it right every time. Obviously, there was mistakes in there, but there were lots of people that could see the enthusiasm within me and would give me the opportunity, which was wonderful.
Mhm. Yeah. Enthusiasm. I seen that right away when I met you and just that enthusiasm, huh? When you think of just managing somebody, now and in your career, what is that for you? What are you trying to do? What do you think good managers should do? What's the biggest thing that helps?
I think for me, it's the way I approach it. So previously, I would have approached a managerial position as what's the objective of the team? And my job then is to flog everybody until they achieve that objective. And I think now, very much so, I see a role of a leader or as a manager is to basically support that person or those people to achieve that goal. So my job is to
Yeah.
do everything I can to remove barriers, to support, to give them the right tools, the right resources. It's to support that person as their buddy, as their pal, on their shoulder, there to help them all the way through so that they can achieve what they're set out to achieve and be the best person that they want to be. I'm not there to berate them or to publicly humiliate them or to flog them till they're absolutely exhausted. I'm there to support. And I think that's what's really important in leadership.
So remove obstacles and bring out their potential. And is that something to do? I see that you've created the Rising Stars Initiative. And tell me about the inspiration behind that.
So, what I found with mainly through my experience at school and then with my children now as a parent, when we touched on it before, is that schools are still very much the same as they were 100 years ago. If you look at the development of cars in that 100 years, they're chalk and cheese from what you would have seen then to what you see now. Whereas the education system is still very much the same. It's still kids staring at it's not a blackboard anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, it's probably a
Yeah.
screen now, but they're still sitting there learning. Then they're
Mhm.
referring to a textbook and then they're doing an exam. With adults, we understand that not everybody learns the same way. We understand that some people are more practical, some people are learn
Yeah.
by doers. So we treat them differently. We offer opportunities for them to learn on the job. And we tend to do that less with kids. So the Rising Stars program came about because if I'd have been offered continuous improvement and lean at a young age, I'm pretty sure that I would have clicked exactly the same with it at that age, but had an extra 15 years of knowledge behind me. So my objective with that is to offer kids of 11 years and up the opportunity to learn about continuous improvement through engaging practical workshops and some online self-guided courses that they can do that just light that fire within them so that they can build that confidence. And what's really exciting about it is the British Quality Foundation are actually endorsing and accrediting the online elements of that Rising Stars program. So the kids will actually get from the biggest hallmark of excellence in the UK a certificate that says they've completed it, which is amazing.
Wow, that is quite something, Matt. And to just give back, because that's an influential age and just to have a better start and change, spice up the curriculum a little bit more, make it more applicable to every learner out there. And that growth mindset part is so important in the continuous learning to understand that at that age. Tell me about the difference you think that could make at that age.
When you think about it, right, as a child, your brain is like a sponge and you're learning the ways of the world. And the whole way through your school years, you're taught right and wrong, true and false, correct, incorrect, black and white. Everything is definitive. Yet then they go into the workplace, this modern workplace with a growth mindset. And then we're saying to everybody, by the way, it's okay to get it wrong. We want you to think like a scientist. We want you to try things and
Yeah.
experiment and continuously improve. But our brains have been conditioned to only get it right. Because if I get it wrong, I won't get promoted. Or if I get this exam wrong, I won't get the qualification. So for me, it's so important at that young age to say, do you know what? It's actually better to fail sometimes, because failure is where you learn. And then all of those little failures add up to create a massive milestone of something you're trying to do. But we don't encourage that. At least I don't ever see that. Are you ready to elevate your team's ways of working? Are you seeking fresh insights and growth opportunities? Our experts will assess your team's practices, providing valuable insights for improvement and celebration. Reward and recognise your team with this certification tailored specifically for creating an improvement culture. The BQF Academy accreditation acknowledges your journey, outstanding outcomes, and future plans. Whether you utilise Lean, Six Sigma, project management, or continuous improvement techniques, this certification celebrates your incredible work and positive impact. Propel your team's performance to new heights with the BQF Team Excellence Culture Certification. Visit www.bqf.org.uk today and let's celebrate your success together.
13-time Shingo Prize winner Dr. Jeffrey Leiker and Toyota Kata author Mike Rother have created the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata online course. This inexpensive, compact program is designed to transform your thinking and approach, making you a highly skilled learner and coach. Engage in deliberate practice to turbocharge your progress. You also get lifetime access to the materials, including all of the bonus interviews. Why pay up to 10 times the price elsewhere, listening to some consultant, when you can gain direct insights from the masters themselves? Skip the rest and go with the best. Join us today and embark on your journey to excellence. Just click on the link below to start your journey.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, it gets to my end then when we have adults in the workforce where, failure is so terrible for them. And, it just like they panic, and whether they either work more or they beat themselves up, and it doesn't end up very well. So I think what you're doing is instrumental. So looking back, you wrote this book, and what an achievement again. But just through writing the book, the experience of writing, what has happened for you, or what have you learned?
I've learned that I actually have a passion for writing. I didn't think that I did, but doing it, I found I'd get absorbed in it. And it was like if you asked me what I was going to write, I couldn't tell you. But physically doing it, it just poured. It's like turning a tap on. It was just coming from a place in my mind that I didn't know was there. And it was just flowing and flowing and flowing. And I actually found it to be quite a therapeutic thing.
Yeah.
Quite nice to download all that information and get it all out there. It's taken me 12 months to do. And for the first 11 months of that, it was just random brain dumps all over the place. And when I was reading it back through and trying to make some sort of logical sense of it all, it really dawned on me then that there's so many lessons in there that I think other people will be going through. And having someone who can say, do you know what, I've been there, I've done that, what a wally I made of myself, will make them feel better and help them find a way through it.
By the way, you mentioned you're a wally twice, and I don't think you're a wally at all.
That's because I drummed into me at school. I'm a wally.
Yeah, it's hard to get those messages out, isn't it?
It is. It really makes a difference.
But,
it really does.
I think you talk about there in the book, just therapeutic, but also the power of reflection. If we don't look back in our lives, we don't see the lessons.
No. And it's having the time to do that as well, isn't it? It's slowing down. And you do this in the workplace all the time. You are so focused on the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Yeah. It could be a promotion, a project or something. You never actually take the time to stop and reflect on where you've been and what you've done.
Absolutely.
Well, leaving Amazon gave me that opportunity, going out on my own with nobody putting their thumb on me saying, Matt, you must do this by tomorrow. It gave me the opportunity to really think about what I'd done. And when I was thinking about it, I started writing it down, which is where the birth of the book came from.
And I think reflection goes with continuous improvement, because you can't improve unless you've taken time out to reflect. So what's now, Matt? What's happening now in your Wally life? What's going on?
Well, I've got the audio version of the book on its way. I narrated it myself, which was a real challenge.
Why is that? Because I love your accent.
Yeah, it was a challenge because there's some bits in there that are very emotional for me,
Okay.
things that I've never really talked about. So there was some real tragedies that occurred at work when I
Yes.
was a young leader, and I had to tell the workforce what had happened and deal with that. And they were things that you don't expect any 19, 20-year-old to have to deal with things like that. So when I was reading it, it brought it all back to me, and I was crying when I was reading it. I found it really hard to say the words. So even now, thinking about it now, it makes me feel a little bit choked up. So it was a hard thing to do, but it was really important to me that because it's my story, I wanted it to come from my mouth,
Yeah.
and no one else could read that in the way that I've written it.
Yeah.
So it was important to me to do. What I didn't foresee, though, when I was doing that is how difficult it was to get through the quality checks that they supply so that you have to get it out there.
Okay.
Goodness me. So it's coming soon. It's on its
It's
way.
fascinating that there was a difference from writing it and reading it.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know why that is. It's maybe because when I'm writing it, it's a download and you're just pouring it out, and it doesn't really make sense when you're doing that. When I read it back and it was telling the story, I guess the build up, the apprehension of the build up that bit was coming, then talking about it, and then talking about the impact that had on the people around me. I think that's probably what it was. It's a really difficult time. There's so many difficult times, and there's things in there that you wouldn't expect a 19, 20-year-old to do.
Yeah.
Yet I was determined to do them because I felt that my role as a leader of people was to do that. And I made massive mistakes, and I was really let down by the people around me. And I tell that story, but I wouldn't change it
Mm.
because if it made me who I am.
It's your story, Matt. It's who you are.
Yeah.
And I see your book, behind you and your face on it. And it's called The Emergence of the Unexpected Leader.
Unexpected to who? That's the question I keep asking. The most unexpected originally was me, I would say. I never expected to be a leader. It's not something I've ever set out to do. It's just natural. Even when I go to parent groups and, the dads all start talking or whatever, I end up leading it. It just happens. I did jury service a couple of years ago, and on day one, all of the jurors were all sitting in the room, and the woman came in and she said, right, what you need to do is you need to nominate a foreperson. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not going to be the foreperson. I'm just going to sit here. She came back in half hour later. She said, who's the foreperson? And they all pointed at me. And I was like, it's me again. It just seems to be something I'm natural at doing. Now I feel most comfortable as the leader. I've learned very much. It's not a role that you put yourself forward for. It's something that just happens naturally. People follow you because they believe in you and they connect with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because it feels like you've come such a long way from a feeling of not belonging as a child to now finding your place.
I do think as you get older, you become more thick-skinned, and in the nicest possible way, Nicola. I couldn't care less if someone likes me now.
Yes.
But
But less worried about what other people think.
exactly, because I'm comfortable in myself. I believe in my
Yes.
beliefs. I know where I've come from. I know where I want to get to. And I tell you what, no one's going to stand in my way. I will get you. If you tell me I can't do something, I'll do it 3 times
Yeah.
and then paste it all over social media to rub your nose in it.
Wow. So what's the next unexpected thing, Matt? The unexpected leader, and certainly from your initial start, what's next? What are we going to be reading a book about in 10 years? The unexpected what?
10 years, I'm much quicker than that. What I've been doing is at the end of the Emergence of an Unexpected Leader, we talk about the bridge of inspirational leadership. Now, this is my model for high performance. It's something that I've sort of toned over the last 25 years, and I found that it delivers high performance within my teams. And my track record speaks for itself. I've got the evidence there that backs up that this works. And I've turned it into this bridge model for other people to be able to use as a blueprint to be able to drive high performance. Now, at the back of this book, we go into what the different parts of it are. So we talk about the 4 key pillars of respect for people, authenticity, engagement, and empowerment. And it talks about the peripheral parts that make the bridge this solid mechanism to go from A to B. Now, what it doesn't do is go into detail of exactly how you do that. So what's the best practice for that? What have I learned? What are some of the hints and tips that I've seen or I would offer up? So the next bit is going to be a follow-up book, which is going to be called The Bridge of Inspirational Leadership. And within that, we will go into each pillar and provide more of a blueprint that people can follow step by step to be able to work towards developing high-performing teams and becoming that inspirational leader.
And what a beautiful analogy of the bridge. And I'm just looking at the framework here, and what a beautiful picture. Yeah, I just think those 4 pillars are so simple and yet so transformational.
I would encourage people to read the book because I think no matter where you are on your leadership journey, whether you're right at the very beginning, you're halfway through, you're reflecting on what you've done, or you're coming towards the end of your journey, I think there's something in there for everybody. There's going to be moments of, oh, yeah, that's me. There's also going to be moments that make you reflect and think, well, do you know what? I've been vulnerable like that. And how did I deal with it? And I think it might even encourage you and inspire you to write your own book about your experiences, because everybody's got wonderful stories and we all think that no one's going to be interested in them. But if you really take the time to listen to people, and I mean actively listen to what they're saying, you do tend to see patterns in people's lives where they've all been through things at different times, but we've all experienced it, but we don't talk about it. And I think that's what I want to do. I want to encourage that dialogue, that community of people that want to deliver high performance, not through standing there chastising people, but through being an inspirational leader. That's the important thing.
Wonderful. Because as you say, Matt, everybody has their own amazing story when we just take time to ask those questions.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for letting me hijack the show today, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been lovely to hear more of your story and to be able to talk about your book. Thank you so much.
I think you're after my job. I'm not going to get it
No
back.
hope, Matt. No hope. Hey, we're turning the tables on you, Matt. Let's do it. The yes or no game. Here it goes. Okay, Matt. It's Tokyo, the capital of Japan.
It is.
Do humans have bones as adults that they do at birth?
We do.
Is the Earth the third planet from the sun?
It is.
Come on, Matt. Is Venus hotter than Mars?
Much hotter.
Can you tell me where you live?
I live in the south coast of the UK.
Is it hot there?
No, it's freezing. Oh, what a wally. I said, no, I can't believe it. I was doing so well. I can't believe it. I failed my own game. How embarrassing. But cut that out.
It's okay, Matt. You can think about what you can learn and improve.
Yes, I'll reflect on that. Oh, what a wally.
Reflect on that.
And on that bombshell, that brings us to an end of this episode of the Ever Celine podcast. Thank you so much to Nicola McCrabbe for coming on and taking over the show today. She asked some brilliant questions that got me thinking about my journey from an external point of view, not from a author's perspective. So it was really, really interesting for me. I really hope you get the book and you enjoy it. Let me know if you do read it and what your takeaways were. It's The Emergence of an Unexpected Leader. It's available on Amazon in paperback, hardback and Kindle version. And as of yesterday, when this was recorded, you can now get it on audiobook as well. It's fully available on iTunes, on the Amazon bit, all the normal stuff. You can get a copy. Well worth listening to on your daily commute. If you want to learn more, check out everceline.com. On there, you can go to the book tab and you will find more information about The Emergence of an Unexpected Leader. And you'll also see more detail about the Bridge of Inspirational Leadership framework that we touched on very, very briefly earlier. Now, this framework's really exciting. It's based on the last 25 years of my career. If you're looking to drive high performance within your teams and become an inspirational leader, the Bridge of Inspirational Leadership is a brilliant framework for doing that. You can learn more on the website. It mentions it in The Emergence of an Unexpected Leader. Reach out to me directly if you want to know more. Really excited to share it with you and see the impact it can have on your journey. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Ever Celine podcast. And don't forget, Ever Celine, you know it makes sense. The Ever Celine podcast is researched, produced and recorded by Matt Sims. Visit everceline.com to find out more.